we can start now. Okay, start. We can start. Then I can start. Start. Okay. Good morning, students. Last classes we discussed about anemias, different types of anemia, nutritional anemias, there out of nutritional anemias, iron deficiency anemias, and megaloblastic anemias, and subsequently we discussed different types of thalassemias and hemoglobinopathies. Today I am going to discuss an important topic that is childhood malignancies. So actually, childhood malignancy, before starting, I was supposed to talk about leukemias. But before that, we should have some ideas about the childhood leukemias. So what is the childhood leukemias? Relatively infrequent. As compared to adult, the malignancy in children is infrequent. But it is an important cause of morbidity and mortality below 15 years of age. So the malignancies in children is very difficult to detect. Unlike adult, it is not so easy to detect because the signs and symptoms of malignancy are in children are non-specific. And one important difference between adult malignancies and children malignancy is that the cancers in children are totally different from those seen in adult in the form of types. For example, so adult we see, for example, the hepatocellular carcinoma is more common, but it is not seen in case of in children, less seen. For example, carcinoma of the stomach is more common in case of adult, but it is not seen in so frequently in children. And for example, the leukemias are more common in case of children, but not so seen in commonly in adult. For example, neuroblastoma, medulloblastoma, other solid tumors are more. This type of solid tumors are more common in case of children, but not in case so common in case of adult. Similarly, the childhood malignancies are potentially curable, not as that of adult, because these are, if treated properly, this could potentially curable. And response to therapy also good in case of malignancy in case of children. So, what are the common childhood malignancies we see? Usually, the most important, around 30 to 40% of childhood leukemia is leukemias. And next common childhood malignancy is brain tumor, followed by lymphomas. Out of lymphomas, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is more than the Hodgkin's lymphomas. Then other solid tumors like neuroblastoma, retinoblastoma, soft tissue tumors of the bones and gonads are also seen. So how do we approach? That means when we suspect a child with malignancies, so approach to childhood cancer. So when to suspect? So when we suspect that child might have cancers. So in the history, so meticulous physical examinations and appropriate investigations is the key to timely diagnosis of childhood cancers. So most important symptoms is fever. Usually the children come with fever. So fever lasting for more than 2 weeks, not responding to antibiotics and not responding to other form of treatment and associated with other features like pallor. So we can suspect that child might have other than infective diseases and other diseases might have malignancies also. Then lymphadenopathy. So when we get a lymphadenopathy in a child, then we suspect about something abnormal. So for lymphadenopathy, normally there is a lymphadenopathy in children because the childhood is period of facing different types of infections. For that, there is reactive lymphadenopathy. But if the lymph nodes are size are more than 15, more considerable size. For example, the inguinal lymph node is usually large, but if it is more than 15 millimeter, or if there is epitrophial lymph node is more than 5 millimeter, or the post-auricular lymphadenopathy, usually up below behind the ears, it is not seen. And supraclavicular lymphadenopathy is not normally present in infected cases. But if there is supraclavicular lymphadenopathy and those are abnormal, suspicious lymphadenopathy, and some lymph nodes that fails to respond to antibiotic and anticoagulant drugs. Also, we have to look for other causes of like cancers. Another is pallor. So I already said that rapidly progressive pallor. In case of if the pallors have in absence of there is bleeding or any known cause of blood loss, or like nutritional causes or any other blood losses, if the pallor is rapidly progressive, then we can suspect that there might be other causes of bone marrow failure. Then bone pain and arthritis. So sometimes child comes with joint pains and bone pains, especially pain in the chest, that means in the sternum, lower part of the sternum, and pains in the leg, long bones, like arthritis. So because these are the pains are because of the periosteal inflammations, because of the leukemic cells. Sometimes there may be headache because of the raised intracranial tensions. There may be headache. Then important cause, one of the important of childhood malignancies is sometimes bleeding. Bleeding, for example, epistaxis, bleeding in the skin, bleeding in the mucous membranes, bleeding in the hematuria. Sometimes, if the adolescents and girls, there will be menorrhagia also. So bleeding is also sometimes a suspicious cause of malignancy. Then abdominal mass. If abdominal mass in children is always suspicious, it is always suspicious. It is unless proof otherwise, it is always thought to be a malignant abdominal mass. For example, mass of the kidney, around the mass in the kidney area or in the abdomen. So then eye senses. So there may be, suppose the eye senses like this white reflex of the eyes, or eye is proptosis of the eyes, or something abnormality of the eyes. So there may be malignancy. Then mediastinal mass. Sometimes what happens, the patient comes with symptoms of difficulty in breathing, symptoms of hoarseness. Sometimes comes with superior mediastinal symptoms like engorgement of the neck veins, puffiness of the face, engorgement of the chest veins, etc. So if you, sometimes, for example, non-Hodgkin lymphoma present sometimes with mediastinal mass symptoms. So these are the common symptoms when we suspect that the child may have malignancy. So approach, how do we approach to this? So there are two types of malignancies. One is hematological malignancies and another is solid tumors. So for hematological malignancies, most important first line of investigation is peripheral blood smear study and hemoglobin study of hemoglobin estimations and complete hemogram and bone marrow, lastly bone marrow exam. So peripheral smear for hematological malignancies, peripheral smear is the most important. So we can have an idea at the very beginning that if there is abnormal cells, if there is a reticulocytosis, or we can rule out also malignancy if there is, say, infective causes, there is leukocytosis or no abnormal cells. So peripheral smear, hemoglobin. Similarly, hemoglobin. So if there is a drop of hemoglobin significantly, say 2 gram, 3 gram of hemoglobin, then we can, in absence of other diseases, signs and symptoms, then we can suspect. Then bone marrow examination, of course, after when we suspect that the child may have malignancies, then hematological malignancies, and bone marrow is the diagnostic of hematological malignancies. Then for solid tumors, the FNAC, high needle aspiration cytology under ultrasound guided and CT scan guided. Then of course, suppose FNAC there is no malignant cells, but it's highly suspected, the hard mass or there is reactive. The FNAC reports come as reactive glands. So in that case, the excision biopsy or incisional biopsy may be required to diagnose the disease. Then, of course, sometimes there may be investigate some biochemical markers. For example, germ cell tumor, alpha fetoprotein. We can see then beta HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. Then in urinary category, for example, in case of tumors of the adrenal gland, cytoma or other retinoblastoma. So in that case, the urinary catecholamines will be increased. So these are the biological. Other investigations to the extent of the disease is not the diagnosis of the disease, but it is the how much the disease is extended. So in that case, we have to see the CSF, whether the CNS is involved. Then testicular FNAC. So sometimes there is testicular FNAC because most of the malignancies in hematologic malignancies there is relapse or there is relapse in the testicles in case of male side. And of course, X-ray of the chest is most important. Sonography of the relevant part. For example, if there is the abdominal sonography of the abdomen, and then CT scans of the brain. Then of course, MRI if whenever that is indicated. And then also, this is the background of this childhood leukemia. So, now coming to, because I am running short of time, so I have to finish the leukemia. If time permits, I will have to finish the treatment part of the leukemia also. It is very long. I thought that I will take 2 classes, but if I can finish, I can finish in 1 classes. So leukemia is the most leukemia. So definition of leukemia, what is leukemia? Leukemia is the malignancy that arises from the clonal cell. The clonal cells means clonal proliferation. That means one type of cells. So the arises from the clonal proliferation of the abnormal hematopoietic cells leading to disruption of the normal marrow functions. That means normally marrow functions is disrupted, leading to marrow failure. So bone marrow is not able to work its work. Then leukemia is the most common cancer in children below 15 years old. It is the most common in below 15 years old. Yes, around 50% of all the cancers in below 15 years old is accounts for leukemias. So coming to classifications, how do you classify leukemia? The leukemia classification depends on onset. So it's according to clinical course. If it is acute course or the chronic course, or sometimes the type of the cell populations. That is, what type of cell is affected. So, for example, lymphoid or myeloid. Then, so acute according to the clinical course. When we say acute, when the bone marrow blast cells is more than 30%, say it is to be acute leukemia. Then when we say the chronic, so lymphocyte acute leukemias is around 30. Lymphoblastic leukemias is accounts around 7 to 80% of the acute leukemias, and rest 20 to 30% above myeloid leukemia or other non-lymphoblastic leukemias. Then chronic lymphocytic leukemia is not seen in case of children. It is non-diagnosed. Chronic CML, chronic myeloid leukemia, is seen in case of 1 to 2%. So most of the leukemias are acute leukemia in children, and out of acute leukemias, acute lymphoblastic leukemia is the 70 to 80%, and rest 20 to 30% is myeloblastic leukemias. Okay, so we will mostly discuss about acute lymphoblastic leukemia because it is the 70 to 80% of children out of leukemia seen as acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So if time permits, we will in later class I will discuss about acute myeloid leukemias. So you have to know about details about acute lymphoblastic leukemias. So it is the most common childhood malignancy. ALM, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, is the most common childhood malignancy. So peak incidence, what is the peak incidence? Peak incidence around 2 to 5 years of age is the peak incidence. And the sex gender, usually male child are more common than in case of than the female child. So whatever we see in the world, it is around 2 to 5 years of age children coming with severe anemia, irritability, and and boys, higher rates boys. So coming to the etiology, as all the etiology of the majority of the cancers is not similarly, the etiology of the acute is also not known. But sometimes there is a genetic, some association of the genetic syndromes. For example, Down syndromes Down syndrome children are 10 to 20 folds are increased in case of in acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Similarly, other syndromes like Bloom syndromes, Fanconi anemia, these are they present in case of genetic predisposition is there. There, acute lymphoblastic leukemia is more common in Down syndrome and anemias. Then, of course, there is other factors like environmental factors, like exposure to ionizing radiation during pregnancy and the exposure to certain pesticides, then parental smoking, then aggressive chemotherapy. Of course, these are the associations not exactly known. These are the causes of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Then, okay. Then classifications of acute leukemia. How do you classify acute leukemia? So earlier was the based on clinical course and onset, and clinical course of acute leukemia and chronic leukemias and type of cells. Now, acute leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia will how will classify? So acute lymphoblastic leukemia, there are several classifications. These are the three most important classifications are you have to know the cell morphology. That is, by looking at the cells under microscopy, we have to classify the different types of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Why classification is important? Because it has got some prognostic implications. If you know the type of the leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, we can devise the treatment protocol, treatment regimen according to it. So, based on the cell morphology, one classification is cell morphology. It is the most important one. FAB classification, French American British classifications. These classifications, some hematologists of France, America, and British, they devise these classifications. They propose this classification, and it is the well accepted classifications depending on the cell morphology. Then immunophenotyping, that means immunological marker of the cells, of the malignant cells. Depending upon the immunological markers of the classification are done. For example, the T cell type, TB cell type, B cell types. So the prognosis is also different. Then karyotyping, of course, the malignant cells of the bone marrow has to be karyotyped, because already we have seen that some syndromes are associated with more commonly. For example, Down syndrome is associated with malignancy, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. For example, on karyotyping, if the cells, malignant cells are found to be having, say, Philadelphia chromosome, translocation of the chromosome number 9 and 22. For example, there is more chromosomes for the hyperploidy. It is known as hyperploidy. For example, more than 50 chromosomes in a particular malignant cells. So, or hyperploidy, say less than 45 or chromosomes in the, so it has got prognostic implications of the. So we have to classify on morphological basis, then immunophenotyping basis, then karyotyping basis, and of course molecular biology technique. For example, FISH technique, fluorescence in situ hybridization. There is another technique is the fluorescent molecular biological technique. So classifications is that these are the first classifications. So you have to know about the French American British classifications. So that is morphological classification. On this basis, we have to classify these leukemias as L1, L2, L3 type. So three types, you have to know it, L1, L2, L3 type, because L1 is the most common, 80 to 85%, L2 is 15 and L3 is there, because L1 is the prognosis is very good in case of L1 and worse prognosis in case of L3. So how do you classify L1 and L2? Depending on the cell size. In case of L1, the small cells predominate. Cells are small. If you see it under microscope, we say that cells are small and homogeneous. That means the cells are almost homogeneous. They are all small cells, homogeneous, no different types of size of cells. L2 is a large cells and heterogeneous. There are different types of cells, small cells, large cells, big cells. So similarly, L3 also large cells and homogeneous. Then cytoplasm, depending upon the cytoplasm, in case of L1, this cytoplasm is scanty, that is scanty, and L2, the variable cytoplasm and moderately abundant. And nucleoli, we have to see the nucleoli. The nucleoli is very small, inconspicuous. That means very difficult to identify the nucleoli. In case of L1 type, in case of L2 type, the nucleus has one or more and often large. Then in case of L3, one or more and prominent. Nucleus are very prominent in case of L3 type. Then nuclear chromatin. The nuclear chromatin material is homogeneous in case of L1 type and variable in case of L2 type, and in case of L3 type it is strict. Similar nuclear set, regular and occasional cleft. There is a regular, because it is a mature one, that is, it is a regular, and occasional cleft is there. There is clefting and only occasional. But in case of L2 type, there is irregular clefting, and regular in case of L3 type, there's oval to round. Then cytoplasmic basophilia. The color of the cytoplasm is variable in case of L1 type, and in case of L3, intensive basophilic in case of L3 type, and in between in case of L2 type. And cytoplasmic vacuolations. It is also important, you have to remember it. In case of the L3 type, there is a vacuole is there. In case of cytoplasmic vacuolation is there in case of L3 type. But the L1 and L2 type, there are cytoplasmic vacuolation is variable. So yeah, we should know this one, because it is, we can diagnose, we can do in a small setup laboratory also a morphological classification, whether L1 and L2. Why it is important? Because it is also prognosis. L1 is very, prognosis very good, and L3 is prognosis not so good. And then based on immunological classifications, what immunophenotyping? So depending upon the precursors. So then mature B cells, T cells, 3B cells. So these are the immunological classifications, because presence of this, for example, T cell prognosis is not so good, but mature B cells and 3B cells prognosis is good. And the treatment is also slightly different from the, depending upon the immunological markers. Then we come to the next classification, karyotyping, cytogenetics, also known as. It is always done in case of bone marrow specimen, not in case of peripheral blood specimen. In case of other types, we do, for example, in the Down syndrome, we do peripheral blood. But in case of for diagnosis of leukemia and karyotyping, we do karyotyping. So based on chromosomal numbers, so we have to see the presence of chromosome hyperdiploidy. That means chromosome number is more than 50. Normally, what we have chromosome 46 number of chromosomes in case of normal persons. But if it is child in bone marrow blood cells, there is more than 50 chromosomes, then it is hyperploidy. It is a good prognosis. Then hyperploidy, if chromosome number is less than 44 chromosomes, then pro prognosis. So we can devise that, we can say that this child is going will not be prognosis will not be good, because the hyperploidy is there, or the treatment will be also very aggressive treatment has to be done. Then also chromosomal translocations. So we have to see the chromosomes also. If their number may be normal, that numerically normal, but there may be morphology different, or there may be translocation. For example, Philadelphia chromosome, pro prognosis. Philadelphia chromosome is the translocation of chromosome 9 to 22. Similarly, translocation between 12 and 21 excellent prognosis. So we have to classify this. Now come to clinical, how this child presents. So onset may be usually abrupt or insidious. So abrupt onset is more common. Child comes with abruptly. The child was normal, but within 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, this child become very sick. Then there is a sick. Those symptoms may be abrupt, and sometimes there may be insidious abrupt also. So symptoms. So fever. Most common is the fever not responding to antibiotics for more than 2 weeks, or fever is not high fever. It may come sometimes 100, it may come about 40, 41 degrees centigrade. Then of course, pallor. Pallor is a progressive pallor. Progressive or unknown cause, not explainable cause, and if this child is pale. Then bleeding manifestations, bleeding in the gum, bleeding from the gum, bleeding from the mucosa, bleeding from the skin, epistaxis, or blood in the stool, blood in the urine also sometimes appears. So then less commonly insidious symptoms may appear. Sometimes there is a joint pain. Joint pains, it is most commonly seen in case of acute myeloid leukemia, but in case of acute lymphoblastic leukemia also joint pains. So sometimes confused with osteomyelitis, sometimes confused with rheumatic fever or rheumatoid arthritis. Then undue fatigue. This child is very weak. This child is very irritable, not inclined to food, disinclination to food. And then symptoms, sometimes there may be superadded infections, symptoms of infections, for example, oral ulcerations, sometimes lymphadenopathy infections of the other side. So patient may have concurrent infections also. Then, so, of course, these are the symptoms. Age is also important. 2 to 5 years of usually seen. Maybe at later age also, but most commonly 2 to 5 years. Boy, usually boy, gender is boy. Then sometimes it is in the only one children is on the only side like this. Then then severe symptoms like pericardial pain. Sometimes there is a pain because of pericarditis. Pericardium is involved. Then sometimes CNS symptoms like headache because of increased intracranial tensions. Then irritability, vomiting. Vomiting is important because of more early morning vomiting or vomiting without any nausea. Then meningism, signs of meningism, difficult pain in the neck. And there may be sometimes diplopia because of CNS cranial nerve pulses or other cranial. Sometimes it will be paraplegia because of compression of the spinal cord. Then, of course, then respiratory symptoms like difficulty in breathing, respiratory distress because of airway obstructions. Then obstructions. So these are the symptoms usually presents. Presents. On examinations, we find that enlargement of the spleen, enlargement of the lymph node, enlargement of the lymph node. So enlargement of spleen and liver may not be so much. Minor, there may be minor enlargement. So how to diagnose? Diagnosis is based on clinical symptoms. Whatever we have discussed, clinical symptoms. Then, of course, laboratory. Laboratory is very important because we have to confirm it. Because before declaring it a malignancy, leukemias, so we have to be very sure. So, what is good? So, peripheral smear. Already, I have said that peripheral smear in hematological investigation has got special importance, not only in leukemia, in all types of investigation, peripheral smear is important. So we have to see the peripheral smear, whether is there abnormal cells, if there is then hemoglobin, of course, hemoglobin you have to estimate. They are complete hemogram. So what a total cell count, RBC count, reticulocyte count, all this. Then cytochemical stain of the smear. Then cell marker for immunophenotyping already I have said. Then so whenever they increase in leukocytes count, so leukocytes count is more than 1 lakh per cubic millimeter or more than 50,000 per cubic millimeter and presence of blood cells. Then thrombocytopenia, it is very important, very important in a site with presenting with anemia because the thrombocytes, that is platelets, are the first casualty. Suppose there is no other blood cells, but child is very sick, pallor is there, and we have found that the thrombocytes are less, then we have to see very carefully that this child may have leukemia because the leukocytes, thrombocytes are the first casualty usually in case of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Then we have to go to next is definitely I will say bone marrow. Bone marrow. So what will happen? Bone marrow. It may be sometimes bone marrow may be aspiration of the bone marrow or defining biopsy of the bone marrow. So bone marrow usually what happens? There may usually hypercellular, or sometimes there may be hypocellular. When there is bone marrow hypercellular, we may get a bloody tap. That means more bloods are coming out in case of on aspiration. And when the bone marrow is fibrotic, then there is dry tap. There may not be difficulty in getting the bone marrow. Then what we see in the bone marrow? In bone marrow, we see the blood cell. It is the outstanding features, abnormal cells. That is the leukemic cells, immature cells. So according to France American Disease Classification, if the blood cells is more than 30%, then we more 30% or more, then we say acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Of course, next investigations we have discussed that karyotyping of the bone marrow plus cells, for bone marrow cells. We have to do karyotyping because to know the prognostications of the prognosis of the leukemia, and also to devise our treatment regimen. Then other laboratory investigations, it is not the diagnostic, but for the purpose of the treatment, we have to do X-ray. For example, lateral view of the X-ray to show the mediastinum. For example, other investigations like electrolytes, then urea, creatinine, uric acid, dehydrogenase, calcium, phosphate, bilirubin, glucose 6 SGPT, that means liver function test, then coagulation profile, then of course CSF, aspiration of the CSF and CSRT of the CSF, because these are required for the treatment purpose. When we will be doing treatment, we need to know that these status of the body, the functions of the body, look like urea, creatinine, calcium, phosphate, bilirubin, serum enzyme, liver enzymes, coagulation profiles, and of course CSF. So these are the, but main treatment main is peripheral smear and bone marrow. So differential diagnosis. So sometimes similar illness is seen in case of not only in leukemia, but leukemia like similar disease. For example, there is ulceration of the throat. Sometimes presence may infectious mononucleosis also there may be granulocytosis, follicular tonsillitis, and diphtheria, etc., etc. So many, for example, lymphadenopathy. These also causes lymphadenopathy. So then other causes of joint pains. Already I have told that joint pain sometimes it may be because of leukemia or maybe because of other causes like acute rheumatic fever, like acute rheumatoid arthritis, or there may be osteomyelitis or septicemias. And then other causes of fever. So fever is a symptoms. There may be many causes. We have to look for other causes of the fever. Then other causes of abdominal pain. So there the abdominal pain may be because of other causes also. Then leukomed reactions, usually infectious mononucleosis. Sometimes even there is a severe infections in the body. So all of a sudden the cell counts, especially the white cell counts, increases. Like it appears to be 50,000, 40,000 sometimes. This is known as leukomed reactions. But here the abnormal cells are not seen and response to treatment. So time is there.
So only 5 minutes.
So only 5 minutes there. So we start a treatment. Only guidelines I will tell you. If time permits, I will take in next class. Even then we will. Treatment. So treatment improvement in survival from acute lymphoblastic leukemia with modern therapy is one of the greatest success in the field of pediatric oncology. So now with modern treatment and diagnostic facilities, the treatment of acute lymphoblastic leukemia is very good. The use of combination chemotherapy has led to the survival of more than 80% of overall and greater than 95% in children with low risk. So the risks. So for treatment, we have to assess the risk as a risk assessment, high risk or standard risk. In case of standard risk or low risk, with the combination chemotherapy, that means more than one chemotherapeutic agents when you use, the survival rate is more than 80% and 95%. More than 95%. Then risk-based approach allows use to modest therapy to avoid toxic adverse. So we have to devise to risk-based approach to lessen the toxicity of the chemotherapy agents. So risk assessment, how do we assess the risks? The standard risks and high risks. So age, already I have said that 2 to 10 years is the standard risks. Below 2 years and above 10 years is the high risk. So in case of male child, is the high risk. In case of female child, it is a low risk. The initial white cell count at the diagnosis, at the time of diagnosis, the white cell count, total WBC count is less than 50,000. It is a standard risk or low risk. Then if the total count is more than 50,000, then it is a high risk. Then hepatosplenomegaly, if at the time of diagnosis hepatosplenomegaly is absent, that is a good. If the massive hepatosplenomegaly is the high risk. Similarly, lymphadenopathy absent or massive, then central nervous system leukemia. So if there is no meningitis or on CSF examination there is no leukemic cells, then it is a standard risk. But if there is a CSF CNS involvement, that is it is a high risk. Then medicinal mass, if the absent, it is a standard risk. Is present, it is a high risk. Similarly, phenotype. Already I have said that pre-B leukemia, pre-B lymphocytes, and then it is a good. But if the measure B cells, it is prognosis is very good. Then ploidy, already hyperdiploidy. I have already said that hyperdiploidy, more than chromosomes, more than 50 is a good, and if it is less than 44, then it is a high risk. Similarly, cytogenetics. So cytogenetics is some trisomy syndromes and some translocations are good for treatment purpose. For example, T translocation 12 and 21 and trisomy 4 and 10. But trisomy translocations between 9 and 12, 22, it is also known as Philadelphia chromosomes, and other translocations like 4 and between translocation between 4 and 11 number of chromosomes and 8 and 14 number of chromosomes. Similarly, response to treatment. So initial response, but if the response is very good, so for example, within first week or the second week response, the leukemic cells are not there, good response, then it is a indicator of the standard risk, and the child is not responding or within 2 weeks or 7 days or 2 weeks, then it is probably high risk. Similarly, minimal residual disease after first inductions. Suppose after first induction 4 to 6 weeks, induction is period is 4 to 6 weeks, induction remissions. After 4 to 6 weeks, there is a minimal residual disease. Then it is a good for that is standard risk, and there is a still leukemic cells are there. Then it is the high risk. So treatment, the treatment of acute lymphoblastic leukemia, you have to divide it into 4 stages. What are the 4 stages? Number 1 is induction of remissions. It is known as induction therapy or induction of remission. That means we have to bring back the child to the non-leukemic stage by starting chemotherapy around 4 to 6 weeks. Then CNS prophylaxis. That means we have to prevent the CNS, central nervous system, of getting leukemic cells. So CNS prophylaxis. Then intensifications are also known as consolidifications. So after induction of chemotherapy and CNS prophylaxis, we have to consolidate. The consolidation is done to prevent relapse. Then of course, maintenance therapy. Maintenance therapy has to be continued for around 2.5 years, maximum up to 3 years. So continuation therapy is done to prevent the relapses. Whatever the gain in the induction therapy and consolidation, it has to be maintained for around 3 years so that there is no relapse. So maintenance therapy has to be done. One minute. So induction therapy. So I'll start induction. Generally 4 weeks therapy, 4 to 6 weeks induction with 4 drugs. So it is very difficult to remember all the doses of the drugs, but you have to remember the drugs and the main regimen. That means what are the drugs and what are the phases of therapy. So induction phase is generally we started with four drugs. One is prednisolone, vincristine, daunorubicin, and L-asparagine. So complete remission means less than 5% plus cells in bone marrow, along with return of good health. So after starting, after 4 to 6 weeks, when you say this, I has come to the remission.